there, and I really love the quality of this camera a little too much because I see smudge beams all over the place. Which is kind of nasty, but that's okay. Hi everybody. I am Sidney. Nice to see you all here. I was told by my coach Ari to start doing lives, and I think that I'm going to start doing them every week, once a week, just to kind of get on another platform and talk to you guys about some questions that I know that I may not have been able to get answered. Also, hopefully you guys can hear me. I am experimenting with my mic right now, so if you can't hear me, I would love if you'd comment and say like, hey, can you hear me right now? Comment if you can. Okay, so just to start off, I am a software engineer and I work in tech. I am also a YouTuber, and I have a consulting business where I help people that are trying to find a position in tech, trying to break into tech, trying to find another position in tech, find study resources, just find any sort of help or assistance that they need to figure out their next steps in tech. And that has been a very interesting project of mine as we have gone through this pandemic. So I appreciate everybody that has wanted to work with me, wanted to see what I can do for them, as well as helping me kind of figure out what more that I want to do for myself and my following. So I appreciate all of you that have been listening, that have been following me. So yeah, I have a couple of things that I wanted to get on and talk about today. Actually, I'm going to pull up Twitter right now and a couple of oh my goodness, I can actually see myself right now on Twitter. That's really crazy. Okay, let me go away from this because this is scaring me a little bit. Let me see. So I had posed a question this morning actually about what more people want to hear me talk about on the TL, on YouTube, on my email list, and I also put up a survey a couple of days ago, I think maybe a week ago. And first off, thank you so much for everybody who has decided to take the survey, who all commented and DM'd me. And I appreciate all of the feedback because that helps me figure out what more that you want to hear from me. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of go through today what questions and topics people wanted me to kind of talk about in over this hour. I think I'm going to be on for about an hour. And we can start from there. So let me pull a couple of these up real quick. Also see if you guys can hear me, so you might hear an echo in the background for about an hour. So you guys can hear me. You can start to need that now. Okay, so one of the first questions that I got actually today was from @LauraGift. I really loved this question, so shout out to you. I'm gonna tag you in this actually. Let me see if I can actually do that. I don't know if I can, but that's okay. But @LauraGift, I appreciate you and your question because one of the things you suggested that I start talking about a little bit more on my timeline was the struggles and wins that I have had as I'm navigating through my tech career. And just to kind of start with that, for anybody who is new to tech and who is trying to figure out what they want to do in their next steps in tech, like I am, because I'm in the same boat. I'm still trying to figure out like where I'm going to be like falling and navigating to next. It isn't really a defined path for me just yet. I know that I really love JavaScript. I know right now that I want to learn more object-oriented programming and like server-side like programming languages, and so Java is just the one that I've happened to step upon in my journey. Where was I going with that? So there's going to be so many ups and downs during your career, and it's only been a year and a half for me going into this journey of tech, and there's already been so many like ridiculous ups and downs. And one of the struggles I'm actually like dealing with right now and still deal with is that imposter syndrome. And so, for example, what I feel like I'm struggling with right now is really understanding the basics of object-oriented programming with Java, and how I can start using that on a broader scale for the stories that I'm working on. And it's really interesting because my mind is working like how you would when you're in another country and people are speaking another language. And so let's say Java is the other like spoken language. So somebody's talking to you in that language, and then you have to like translate in your brain what they're talking about in Java. And then because I know JavaScript, I'm trying to translate that into JavaScript so I can actually like understand what's going on. And so in some ways, I feel like I need to stop that, because Java is to JavaScript as ham is to hamster. It's two completely different things. They aren't even cousins. They aren't even like really in the same family. And so that kind of keeps me in that struggle where I'm trying to translate into a whole nother language for me to like understand. And that's not really how it works. That's not really the structure of how Java and JavaScript work, to be honest. And that's been a big struggle for me. Like today, for example, I've been working on this story at work. We call them stories, these like little projects that we're doing that we're updating like little bits or big bits of code, where I've had to look at unit tests where I'm like checking if the code is actually working and actually like doing what I want it to do. So we're testing it out, making sure that it actually works. I've been struggling with this like one particular test, and honestly, it's been like a struggle with this particular story for like a good maybe 3 weeks. We had to roll it into this project sprint of like work, and so we had to look at it a little bit more deeply and see like what parts of the code like I was not understanding and what I could do a little bit better. And I was really appreciative of my mentors being able to help me figure out what I was doing wrong. But now that I'm kind of like understanding a little bit more of what's going on with my story, like there's just still that one thing where I'm just like, I don't fucking get this. And it's going to be a while until I understand this. So let me ask for help. What I had to realize in my struggles as a programmer is that that struggle and that imposter syndrome is just a sign of growth. And you have to think of it as always, those struggles always being a good thing, because in the end, you're always going to find a lesson, or you're always going to find support when you look in the right places or when you're able to get some help. And it's temporary. The struggles that you're going to feel when it comes to tech in general, that's just going to happen throughout your whole career. And I was on the phone with my mentor actually today, and he was like, I don't get any of this. What was it he was looking at? I'm not getting any of this Maven shit. Like, it was very hilarious that he was just like so angry at like what we were doing and experimenting with. He wasn't looking at Maven, it was something else. But he was just like, I don't get this. I am struggling with this. We're gonna have to find somebody else to ask tomorrow. So we're gonna do that tomorrow. But the struggles in general are not going to stop when it comes to code, because like literally nobody knows what they're doing when it comes to being an engineer. Like, we are riffing it all day long, and most of the time we're copying and pasting each other's code and just like praying to God that it works. But those little struggles that you have that are short term, what's great about them is that they do produce growth. They do produce a lesson, and you can either work with that lesson and see what you can learn afterwards, what growth that you can obtain from going through that struggle, or you can kind of sit there in your filthy guilt and feel bad about like not getting it, and you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to like find the lesson in why you're struggling. And so at this point, like, going back to my story with this unit test, I don't understand it. I have looked at it for a good day or two, and it's just not coming to me. And so what advice that I like to give to people, or just like my students, as well as just like people that I know that are trying to get into tech, first off is see what you can get away with. And that actually is a quote that I got from one of the books that I'm reading, Jen Sincero's How to Be a Badass. Actually, I have one of her books. This isn't the book, so go find it. I have the actual like soft cover of You Are a Badass at Making Money. I like her books, but the one that I'm talking about is the one with the yellow cover. So I really like her, and I especially like her audiobook. She's hilarious, actually. But in one of her chapters, she describes that you're not ever going to be ready for like literally anything that you do. And if you keep staying in that like flight pattern of, oh, I'm just going to wait and see like until I like know what I'm doing, or if you wait until like you've done enough research or done enough practice or done enough to prepare for this project, you're not ever going to learn anything. You're not going to experience that pain of having to struggle and then like figure it out and like have that joy of like actually learning the lesson. And so when you're struggling with code or trying to solve a problem, see what you can get away with first. Let's see if I do a console.log here. Let's see if I put a debug point on a line of my code and just start like poking around in the code editor or IDE and see like what I can figure out to figure out the problem. What can I Google right now and get away with to see if I can actually like find the source of my questions or the source of the problem. See what you can get away with first, and if that doesn't work the first time, then go ask for help. And I say that with a timeline in mind. Me in particular, I say that you struggle and see what you can get away with for about an hour, 2 hours max, because this gives you the time to start taking notes, to start reflecting on what you do know, to start potentially reflecting on forming questions about what you don't know, and then having that evidence to present to a person that's going to help you to either get you going in the right direction, see if you were going in the right direction, or have them figure out like what your like thought process was before you start actually like solving the problem. And so some people I think will say like, oh, like give it 20 minutes, give it 30. And I don't think that that's enough time for anybody to just really struggle with it, with whatever problem that they're looking at, to see like what they can do to help like solve the problem themselves. Because in hindsight, like whatever your problem is, why you're getting like 1,000 errors might be just because you're missing a brace or a semicolon, and that will never stop. You will forget braces, semicolons, parentheses, and you'll have a crap ton of errors, and you're just like, okay, what's going on? And that's it. And that will be something that you'll have to encounter for the rest of your life if you're a dev. So good luck to you if you get really mad about stuff like that, because that's a reality. That's a reality that we all live in. And yeah, I think that you're always going to struggle. You're always going to have those little struggles, but it's all about thinking about them as what can I learn from them. And that's one struggle that I'm going through. And then successes that I've been having lately. I can think of a couple. So some successes right now that I'm having is that I've been fairly consistent with my study plan, because that was super hard to actually like start in the first place. And I had to realize and make a decision during the quarantine. I'm still technically in quarantine, but I guess the rest of the world isn't, but that's a story for another day. That I think that I just needed to shift my priorities a little bit, and I was like given the opportunity to shift my priorities a little bit on what time that I could spend on growing my experience and my learning path for programming. I'm gonna shut this door because that's a lot of light and it's beautiful, but I cannot shut anymore. Okay, shut the door. Hopefully you guys can still see me. Boom. Okay, so what I was saying before is that I have been really good with tending to my study plan, and I think part of that is because I've had the time to listen to myself a little bit more on what I need to grow to be a better developer, and the time. I didn't realize how much time that I would have just during the quarantine, like staying at home and things. And thank goodness that I realized early that I could just like start actually doing more to help evolve my skills. But more importantly, I didn't realize how much time I was actually like spending at the office, driving there, driving home, driving to other places like tutoring or different like events where it was just like all of this time was just kind of not being or going towards like having to go to work, having to drive there, having to spend more time like at work without with all of the meetings and being in people's faces and things. So I didn't realize like how much that was eating into my time with learning, and it had been like eating into my timeline with learning for a really long time. So that is kind of sad, but oh well. But now that I know that I like working from home, it's just very interesting like how much I've been able to get done, because I don't think that I would have been able to efficiently start my YouTube channel up again if it wasn't for quarantine, or start having the time to dedicate to journaling and meditation again and working out in the mornings, because normally I would work out at night, and I would journal at night when like I've already had so many like things evolved in my brain, instead of just like having a brain dump right before I start getting up for my day, and then just kind of be fresh and clear for the next brain dump. To just kind of fill my brain up with like other thoughts and things. And I really like that I've been able to get more time to go a little slower with my mornings and go a little slower with my timeline, with my team actually, and be able to really just start reflecting and be more self-aware of like the things that I want when it comes to my timeline and this and that and the other thing. But I'm digressing right now. So the successes that I have with my study plan is that I've been able to have more time to look at it, and I've given myself this space to start figuring out what exactly I need as a person who's like still learning. And I think like I knew from the beginning that like I'm a visual learner. I like when things are spoken to me. I like when I can see videos, or like when I can code along to see like line by line like what's going on and things. But I didn't really take that to heart for a while, especially since I've been in college for a while, and that didn't really matter. And most of the boot camps that I went to, they were in person anyway, so like I had that kind of visual audio thing kind of going on in person. But now that everybody's just kind of staying in their homes and hopefully staying there, stay home if you can. It's been really nice to know that I can have, or at least get access to resources that'll help me like look at it visually, charts, graphs, videos, whatever, and get that like audio lecture where it can like go in one ear. I can start kind of deconstructing whatever the instructor has said, and then be able to spit it out verbally or like onto notes. So that's really nice. Another success that I've had is that I've actually been doing a lot more critical thinking for the stories that I've been taking on at work, which is really great. I've been completing a lot more stories like on my own without having to ask for too much help, which has been super nice. And it makes me feel confident about like what else that I can start accomplishing. However, that's just been kind of like going in a roller coaster where like, oh yeah, oh shit, like I can do this. And then it's like, nope, I can't do this on my own, I need help. Let's scream and shout and like be kind of sad about it for a minute, and then it'll be up again where it's like, oh shit, I can do this on my own now. I've had like a bunch of those, but basically some of the successes that I've had is that I have been able to really start, I've essentially been forced to, working from home, to not go and like go seek some help out in person until I've actually like struggled with whatever my problem is, and start forming smarter questions to ask people when I am like, I can't do this anymore, I give up, retreat, white flag, whatever. Another success is that I have started making resources and content that people are actually using, and that's really baffling to me right now, because the whole point of me just like doing this live, the YouTube channel, is because I am still in a place where I'm trying to figure out what transition that I'm about to go through in tech myself. I really want to expand my knowledge of programming. I want to make more money. I want to start collaborating with more people, especially more Black people. And it's not necessarily that I don't have any of those opportunities in the Midwest, but I know that I'll have more like other places. So when it comes to what I've been able to do in terms of my success, I'm really proud of myself for starting to connect with people that are just like on that same level as me, that really don't know where they want to go, but like we're able to collab with each other, and I'm able to point people in the right direction because I've been there. I am still there, but the difference is that like I've started teaching, I've started learning with a bunch of mentors of mine, with a bunch of coaches, and I've just done so much research on what I wanted to do when it comes to programming, and some people are very overwhelmed with that. So I just want people to know that I'm not an expert in programming like at all. I am still struggling. I still don't know like what I want to do with any of the knowledge that I know. However, that doesn't mean that I don't know what direction to point you in if you're ever seeking my help. And so that's kind of the whole point of why I'm doing this, is that like, I don't know where we're going, but you know, why don't we try this and see what happens? I can recommend this course to you. I can recommend this coach to you. I can recommend this boot camp to you. I can recommend what would be good for your financial level. What is a free resource? What's an audio resource? What is better when it comes to reading? Whatever your type of learning technique or processes, like I've definitely tried it. I've done it just to figure out like what I want to do when it comes to coding, and I have probably not ever done as much research as I have when it comes to figuring out how to get into tech. So again, I'm not an expert, but I can at least, from my experience, point you in the right direction and know where to go. So I am so happy. Going back around to my successes, I'm so happy that I've been able to make a study plan, and also a reformed, a new study plan, to help people that are trying to figure out what their next direction is in tech, what their next course is. And I've actually seen a couple of, I'm looking right now because I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I have seen a couple of people with their study plans with the 100 Days of Code hashtag. So that's super cool. And that really makes me smile, because like, I know that I'm going in the right direction, and I know that I'm at least like contributing somehow to help people figure out how they want to study, what they want to study, and like what they can do to keep consistent. So that's a really big success. Thank you so much to Laura Gift, who asked me this question this morning. And I hope that answers your question. I don't know if you can see this at all, but yeah. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to be smart about this and actually like tag you in this, and hopefully you'll like see it. Let's see. Can we do that? And okay, so the next question that I got was, go back. Let me see. Okay, so I am going to look at the next person that sent me something. Malika JPH, I appreciate you asking your questions on my TL, so thank you. You had asked about touching on coding boot camps and resources and where to start. So before I say anything, I have to like sneeze 1 second. Okay, it's gone now. The feeling's gone now. So what I want to touch on first is that I do have a whole video on YouTube about coding boot camps. Some people have asked me questions about like how to get started on like looking for coding boot camps, how to know which one is right for you, how to figure out different like questions to like ask people about coding boot camps and what exactly they want when it comes to the classes, what kind of programming languages that they should be looking at when it comes to coding boot camps. And those are really, I got some really awesome questions, but the thing is that there's not one answer that I can give to like satisfy anybody on here on this live or in that YouTube video. The thing about coding boot camps is that you really have to find something that is first off for you when it comes to how much money that you want to spend, what you want to look at when it comes to your education, as well as did I say already like what like your learning style is? Hopefully I did. I don't remember. So learning style, your finances, and like how you want to be educated and what programming languages you want to be educated in. And that's one of the big things is that when you do your research, when it comes to figuring out coding boot camps, I really do recommend that people start looking at free resources first when it comes to programming languages, because you could be walking into a coding boot camp, you could be spending thousands of dollars on this coding boot camp, and you don't even fucking like Java, you don't like Python, you don't like C#, you don't even like JavaScript, and I don't think that is a smart move financially. I think that if you can help it, try and figure out what programming languages that are compatible to you when it comes to their style, when it comes to what exactly you understand when it comes to data types, variables, how functions work, how methods work, how they function with object-oriented programming, if that's the thing with that particular programming language. And really, if it's pretty. Like, I love JavaScript because I think it's pretty. I think that there's a lot more, like, assumption. There's a lot less work that you have to do when it comes to, like, categorizing everything, because a lot of the legwork that JavaScript does is that it assumes, like, what type of variable, like, data types that you want. It's really easy to figure out for JavaScript to figure out like what exactly that you want. Like it can assume like all day, and that's something that I like. You don't have to start categorizing like what data types that JavaScript need for your variables. I think that's ridiculous, but that's Java, and that's object-oriented programming, and that's like a conversation for another day. But find free resources first off to help you understand the basics of a programming language and help you find a programming language that you're like, okay, I could potentially deal with this and figure it out, and I don't want to throw up when I see JavaScript every day when I get a job. The next thing that I think that people should be looking for when it comes to coding boot camps is figuring out like what their learning style is, and if it's better for you to find a coding boot camp that's online, if it's in person, whether it has a textbook or like video chat or online lessons, because your learning style is going to affect always when you learn anything, like how you're able to compute things in your brain, understand it, and then have it come out verbally on page when you're presenting, when you are trying to justify your code, all of that. Me in particular, I have loved doing in-person coding boot camps, but also I've had the most experience when it comes to in-person coding boot camps, where I'm able to see the work, I'm able to see like the textbook or the videos and things, but I also have like the professor there in my face, like talking, lecturing, whatever, and they're able to like answer my questions like right then. So whenever I have it, I'm just like, okay, I give up on this, blah blah blah. And then I'm able to take a moment after I've like watched a video or like got my question answered. I kind of sit there for a minute and say, okay, like how can I kind of translate this in my brain to put this out verbally or put it down on paper. So it's kind of that feedback loop for me where I ask them a question, they answer it, and then I'm like, okay, what do I understand about this? What do I don't understand about it? And then it's where I say like, okay, so this is what I understand from what you've just told me, A, B, C, D. And if it's right, great. If it's wrong, then okay, where in this process, where in this like list of stuff that I've explained to you, did I get it wrong? Is it the whole thing? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Whatever. That's just my learning preference. And in particular, now, of course, now that we're in quarantine, I've been really liking boot camps or like courses that are videos. So they're video courses where somebody's talking, but I'm able to see their screen while they're coding. So that means that I can like do a double screen where I can see their code, I can start writing it out while they're talking, and then I'll pause it and be like, okay, what do I understand about this? And then translate that into notes or in comments that are in my code. So that's really nice. The next thing that I think that people should consider when it comes to coding boot camps is whether or not they can afford like an elaborate like coding boot camp, and whether or not they even like want to try and spend that money or get a scholarship or whatnot. Because in reality, there are so many cool free resources out there that will do the job for you as long as you do the work, do the projects, ask questions, Google as much as possible, and go from there. I think for me, it was really important to go to a coding bootcamp because I need that expectation set up to where I have deadlines to get something finished. And that helps kind of inspire me to figure out like what I want to learn in a certain amount of time. And money is also a great motivation for that because right now I started the new Udacity Java Web Programming Nano degree, and it's where you pay monthly for the content. So that's a really great motivator for me where it's like, okay, I want to be able to finish it by X. And that means that I'll spend Y amount of money. And that's great for me. That doesn't necessarily mean that's great for you. I'm not saying that that is the best way. And in fact, I think that if you are interested in any coding boot camps and whatnot, you really need to start asking people that are in like the financial office or like whatever part of the organization that has to deal with the finances and the admissions, what scholarships are out there and how can you get more out of the education when it comes to the money that you're spending. So ask away. If there are loan options, make sure that you're understanding like what exactly you're getting into, because I bet you any money that there's some places that have some pretty high interest rates when it comes to getting that loan. Making sure that you understand what scholarships are out there, because there are plenty of boot camps that offer scholarships for military people, for veterans, for women, for people of color, for women of color, people with disabilities. Just there's a bunch. I know that there's a bunch, and I definitely had to do that with at least doing a research, figuring out if that was worth getting into with some of the in-person boot camps that I chose to do. So there's that. Yeah, ask questions. Start asking people these questions. Really hound them about the coding boot camp and how much it costs, and what they can do to help you to be motivated more to go to that boot camp. Because if they really want you, then they'll be able to work with you. They at least should want to be able to work with you with that. And I also want people to understand that when it comes to coding boot camps and the quality of them, do your research. Do as much research as possible. If you need to start looking at tracking down alumni, people that have done testimonials for these coding boot camps, these organizations, as well as people who didn't like the coding boot camp or different places online where you can find reviews, go look at those. Go look at the bad reviews, because there's a reason why somebody said that they were struggling, they didn't like it, they thought it was a waste of money, blah, 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 blah. And see how many people thought that or had that mentality about some coding boot camp or whatnot. Like it's really important that you understand what you are about to financially step into, just at all times. You would do the same thing when you're buying a car or you're buying a house. You're inspecting it, you're driving it, you're testing to see if you would even want to live in it, or if it's haunted, or if the brakes don't work, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. It's your education, it's your money, and you need to make sure that this is the best decision for you. And so ask those hard questions. Go blindly ask people who have given testimonials. Ask around about bad reviews for course A, boot camp B, whatever, because that is going to determine a lot of what goes on when you have to encounter something that you're really not loving in that boot camp, and you don't see it because you haven't gone to look for it. What else do I think that you guys should know about them? When you get into a coding boot camp, one of the biggest things, and I touched on this before, is that, again, when it comes to the coursework, you need to be consistent. You really want to start dedicating a chunk of time in your day to look at the coursework outside of the class. And if that means that it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes every day, if it has to be that small chunk of time, then you need to make that commitment. And a lot of places will have you doing work outside of the classroom for maybe like 10 to 20 hours a week. And I know that my particular boot camp that I'm taking right now, Udacity, is like, nope, you have to do like 10 to 20 hours like outside of like actually like looking at the class. Actually, no, in total, a week to like graduate with the certificate in like 4 months. So to get the nano degree in 4 months, you should probably, it is highly recommended that you take 10 to 20 hours every week to look at the study materials and things. And so that's incredibly serious. A lot of boot camps make sure that they tell you a time frame on what they recommend that you should be, how long that you should be studying for. And I take that fairly seriously when it comes to figuring out what boot camps that I want to go to, because that starts eating into my time. And eating into it is a bad word, but it affects what I'm doing in my timeline. It affects what I'm doing in my schedule. And you have to make the time. When you make that decision to hand over a crap ton of money, you're making that decision to dedicate yourself to getting that shit done. So don't squander your money if you are not going to be dedicated to this. Do your homework. Please do your homework. Do the research on what kind of boot camp that you like, what you don't like about it, and determine from there if you want to do it. Make sure you do your research on the money, and make sure you start doing the research on the time that you need to dedicate to it. Because if you're not going to dedicate that amount of time to doing the work to complete it, then what's the point, honestly? And you can't blame that on the instructors, on other students, or the course is so hard, because most boot camps have instructors that are paid erroneous amounts of money to make sure that they are there for you to understand what's going on. They have education departments where they are doing the research. These are developers that have been in the business for years that are trying to help figure out what types of course material will be the best quality it can be for students like you. So don't squander the opportunities, the money, the time that you have to work on boot camps. It is not worth it. It really isn't. So be smart about it. Do your research and ask those hard questions when it comes to coding boot camps. That's all that I have to say on that. And if you have, I know that I had a couple of other important questions in my YouTube video about coding boot camps, so I would recommend that you look at my YouTube video Q&A on coding boot camps. I'm going to also link that in the comments after this live, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the next question that somebody had was, let's see. Struggles when it comes to learning and building your skills. Okay. I'm not sure that I actually answer that question. So yeah. Struggles on learning and building my skills. So I think that, again, I can talk about my struggles all day, but it's such a big thing to accept the struggles that you are going through, because development is just a whole struggle bus anyways. You've dedicated yourself to be on that. You don't know what you're doing. Majority of your peers don't know what the fuck they're doing. So don't ever assume. If they can't help you, that's awesome. And you should be prompted to go to your peers and always ask questions and see what they know, because they may know a step more than you. And maybe that'll point you in the right direction, or you both may learn something. So, don't feel like that struggle is going to be forever, because it is temporary. There's always going to be another struggle that you're going to have to deal with. But if you are being smart, you are going to struggle for those 1 or 2 hours. See what you can get away with when it comes to figuring out what the problem is with your code, with your project, with your design structure, with whatever. Then start asking for help, because in that timeline, what you're wanting to do is figure out what you know, what you don't know, and form questions, smart questions to ask that mentor to help them figure out what's going on in your brain, and then see what path you can go to solve that issue from there. So hopefully that was a answer for you guys. Okay. So, okay, I'll talk a little bit more when it comes to learning and building my skills, because that's, I'm also going to drink some water because I'm thirsty. And my phone won't stop vibrating. Everybody is hooked on the green meat. Okay, so learning and building my skills. I think what I'm going to talk about with this is what I've been doing so far to what I learned, what I do know, what I have learned up to this point, and some struggles and successes on building my new skills. So let's see. I have been in 2 coding boot camps that were in person that taught me a lot of JavaScript. And I am nowhere near being an expert in JavaScript at all, but I am much more comfortable with figuring out functions and refactoring and solving problems in JavaScript than I am with like any other programming language. With that being said, with the job that I do have now, I am learning to code in object-oriented programming in Java. And so, again, Java and JavaScript are two completely different things and completely different programming languages. So they sound the same, but they're not. The struggles that I've had when it comes to figuring out Java is that I'm still like going in my head and like translating to JavaScript so I can see if I can understand what's in my face that's Java, and that isn't a thing. Like, that's not going to help. However, what I have been enjoying about Java is that I have been in the struggle, and I have like started really understanding a little bit more the essentials of building a program and how different functional programming is to object-oriented programming. And Java is the older programming language, and so like the fact that people are actually like able to comprehend all that shit is beyond me, because there's a lot more organization and a lot more discipline that goes into how Java is set up, which hopefully I will be able to understand a little bit better, because I don't fucking get it. And I will admit on here that I don't fucking get it, and I don't fucking get it every day of the week. But I'm getting closer to understanding it and getting it, so that's good. What I've been doing so far to help me understand a little bit more on what's going on, if you aren't following me on my 100 Days of Code posts, thread, whatever, you should do that, because I give a small snippet of like what I'm doing every day for my code and what I'm learning. And so I started off 100 Days of Code. Today I think is day 50. And so I'll be putting up a 30-day check-in this week for my 100 Days of Code progress. But what I've been doing so far when it comes to courses is I made a commitment to 100 Days of Code and decided first that I was going to look into Test Automation University's Java programming course, and that is by the beautiful, smart, and talented Angie Jones. She is fucking GOAT, and I think she won an award recently, like a Java superstar or something or whatever. And I thought that shit was so cool. So go you, Angie Jones. You're awesome. You're beautiful. You're smart. You're talented, and I want to be like you. And I really love her Test Automation University course, no lie. I think that what's great about it is that it goes into Java concepts, but what the significance of the actual class is that it teaches actual programming skills, not just on the Java level, but just like the general scope of programming, like how to program, how to analyze, what to be looking for when it comes to data types, when it comes to what scope is, when it comes to variables, when it comes to executing code and solving problems while you're coding. And that is the refresh that I needed, but also it helped break down much more what was going on with Java programming. So I'm very appreciative that I found Angie Jones and her Test Automation University course. It's so dope. The next thing, so the timeline that I put into looking at her course was about 3 weeks. So that was maybe like 20 days into my 30-day or 100 Days of Code, excuse me. And then that's when I started looking into another course. So a local boot camp around here is part of a nonprofit organization that is Launch Code. I have taught some of their courses to students before, which was really awesome. And so I knew that they had a pathway for Java web development, and I started with their course. And so I was into it for like maybe 2 weeks, and then was like, okay, there's something wrong when it comes to figuring out what I need from this course. And so I had to really sit down and figure out on my check-in what I needed to start either continuing or completely break up with that resource. And what I found out was kind of obvious, and I didn't think about it at the time when I started, was that just because it's a free resource doesn't mean that it's compatible with necessarily your learning ability. And that is not to rip anybody when it comes to their course, because their stuff is awesome. It really is. But I am not in that right mind when it comes to reading a textbook for programming. That's just not my learning style for programming at all. I need you to talk to me. I need to actually see the code working. I need to see it step by step by step. And if I'm having to read while I'm trying to code, while I'm trying to figure out what the problem is, like, I'm already pissed. I'm about to say, fuck it, I don't want to see any of this, and go from there. And that's very discouraging for me, and it's just not, it's not motivating. And so I had to figure out what I could take from their resource to start understanding what I could do to find either the next course or figure out what I could do to make my experience of the course better. So what I've been doing is that I actually started, I forgot that they had this function on their website, but like, you can type in keywords and things. It's a search engine, that's all that it is. It's nothing like super exciting, but like, whenever I'm stuck on a problem with Udacity's course, I can kind of look back to what maybe a reference is of like a constructor, a Java constructor in the launch code course, and be like, okay, let's like read a definition, say it out loud, see if I can like comprehend it, write it down, go back to the video that I was watching and go from there. If there's something that I'm still not really understanding in any of the courses that are on the video, then I'll go to the launch code resource, try and figure it out, try and see like if somebody else can translate it for me, write it down, comprehend it, do whatever, and then go about my way. So in a way, I'm still using the resource, but I'm not as actively using the resource because I decided instead that I wanted to make a commitment to actually finding something that will not only stimulate me audio wise and visually, but will also start having me look at other concepts, like when it comes to microservices and how that works with Java, how I can start like actually creating projects from the ground up when it comes to unit testing and just figuring out like other like concepts when it comes to streams, when it comes to Spring Boot, in like greater detail, instead of having to go look for other resources and things. And that's why I decided to look into the Udacity's degree, and I'm just gonna see where that goes in tandem with like going to do a simple Google search or using that textbook that I've been using with as a resource. So those are the courses that I've been taking on right now. What I am probably going to do next after I complete the Udacity Nano degree is I will most likely go back to one of my old Udemy courses and start reviewing more JavaScript, because I really haven't touched a whole bunch of JavaScript in maybe like 7-8 months, and that's kind of scary. And it's just because it's been for work where I'm mostly working in Java, and I had been teaching. I I've been teaching JavaScript, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I was like balls deep, like working in it. So I definitely need like a refresher. I definitely need to look at some other projects where I can start using JavaScript a little bit more, and so that's the goal. I think that I can complete all of my desired coursework by the end of the year. We'll see what happens. That is if I decide to make the dedication to keep on going with this Udacity course. I am using the free 30-day trial that they're giving out right now to kind of see what I like about this course, see what I don't like. So far, I'm really loving the videos. I love the quizzes. I love like the different little exercises that they have you doing, and that's really nice. The only caveat to it is that there are definitely some things that I don't understand about JavaScript enough to be like Java, not JavaScript. There are definitely a couple of things that I know that going forward I will not understand when it comes to getting further into figuring out Spring Boot and some unit testing and things. And so I'll probably have to go back and look at some essentials again, which I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. But the expectation for Udacity was that you should know at least a little bit of object-oriented programming and things. And so I will definitely be looking back and being like, okay, like what can I learn from their courses, from the textbook? What can I get from my notes to have me understand a little bit better what's going on? I'm going to use that 30 days and see if this is the right course for me, and I'm not paying anything right now, so once I hit that timeline of I'm having to pay, then I can decide whether or not I'm going to continue on or not. So if I decide that I'm not going to continue with that, then I'll figure out the next plan. But that's kind of the other caveat to like dedicating yourself to a study plan and actually breaking up with resources is that you gotta find another one. And so hopefully I won't be like spinning my wheels on trying to find another resource, but normally I have backup. So if this doesn't work out, then I can push through the textbook or figure out another course. I think that I have another course on Udemy that I can probably use and figure out and go from there. So yeah, those are the resources that I've been using so far. I've been really enjoying my learning time. It's definitely been easier to dedicate more time to study. It's been a little difficult to be consistent just because I've been trying to figure out what resources that I want to use, but I'm not in such a analysis paralysis right now where it's going to stunt my growth, I think. However, a struggle that I have is that when I sit down to actually like learn, I'm like looking through a video, it may be like 20-30 minutes max, but I'm like spending an hour on it because I want to get into as much detail as possible to understand the concepts. And so I'm either like starting to code and I'm like pausing the video and writing stuff down and like going back and forth between the video, my code, and the notes. So I will probably have to figure out another way to do that, and that's something that I want to talk about in my 60-day check-in for my 100 days of code. So I will be giving you guys a solution that I have figured out to that as well. So we'll go from there. Yeah, that's the resources that I've been dealing with right now. I will answer one more question, and then I think that I will ask if you guys have any other like additional questions. How about that? Let me go to my forms. Actually. Let me see. Oops. 1 second, guys. Okay, so that's loading right now. So I'm also going to put out here again this form where I've asked you, oh good, oh I have more people that have asked, good, you are using this, I'm so happy. Okay, so, oh, this is a really great one, I'm so glad that I decided to go here. So, okay, I'm concerned about never feeling like I know enough and therefore never having it in me to submit an application. I'm worried that being self-taught isn't enough and I still have to go back to school to get a degree, which in case I'll be close to my 40s before I'm deemed employable, and I know ageism I can't read. And I know ageism is a very real problem when it comes to hiring. I'm also concerned about sexism in tech cultures. As I know all too well, it's still mostly an all-boys club. My husband is a software engineer, and there's only 2 women in his office, and neither of them are programmers. Okay, so this is an awesome question, so thank you so much to whoever had brought this up. I will definitely be talking about this in a later video and things, because first off, when it comes to feeling like you never know enough, that is the baseline. Right now, I feel like I don't know shit. I don't know shit at all, ever. How did I get this job? How am I a software engineer right now? Is what I ask myself a lot when it comes to when I'm struggling, when I'm trying to figure out a problem. And the best answer that I can give to somebody who is struggling with feeling like they don't know enough is that's the baseline. Nobody knows enough. And 10 times out of 10, 11 times, 20 times out of 10, you are Googling shit majority of your day. I can tell you right now that majority of my day is I am in meetings 50% of my day. I am trying to figure out with my team how we are going to start looking at the next timeline of projects that we need to look at, what we can break down into simple little projects that one person or 2 people can complete in that certain timeline, and how that is going to gauge into our progress for that particular timeline, for that week, for that month, whatever. I'm in meetings half of my time every day. I think that's the most ridiculous shit in the world, but I can tell you that is a thing where majority of programmers are in meetings every day, 50% of their time. I spend maybe 10% good on programming every day. I am either Googling or asking people questions or talking to somebody that will help me go into the right direction to ask questions. I'm emailing people about dependencies on other people's work. I am looking up in the database what exactly this particular table is doing. I am debugging code. But at the end of the day, you're not ever going to know enough to do anything in programming. And that's okay. I think that's still a lesson that I have to learn myself, because I've been taking all these courses and it just feels like I don't know enough. But you're here and you're trying your best to figure out what you want to do when it comes to programming. And so if you can take 1 or 2 courses, if you can figure out what boot camp that you want to go into, you can have you will have enough experience to either just go for it, just see what you can do when it comes to applying for jobs, or figure out, okay, how can I get a little bit better with knowledge that I know now? And you're never going to be ready for any type of job interview or anything, but I actually recently read an article on inhersite.com. It's on their blog, and the title of the article, I have it up actually right now, is Why 60% Qualified is Enough According to a Recruiter. So let's break this down a little bit. I won't riff off of the article because I think that we have to understand how tech positions are broken down, because they're only listing out their desired things that they want people to know. And I can look at a job description right now and tell you that I know that people are not going to know majority of those skills, but if that company, if that team really wants to hire somebody, the inevitable is that they're going to have to teach. They're going to have to educate people on how to use their systems, how to program in that certain language that they want, how to use that data, how to execute it, how to render it on the front end, how to start configuring it on the back end. You're never going to know everything that they are desiring in that job listing, and that is totally okay and that's totally acceptable. However, when it comes to that, you need to understand that saying just I don't know is not enough. When you're going into a tech interview, when you're going into any interview, I feel like the smart way to make sure that people are understanding what you do know and you don't know is that you can say I don't know. However, you need to start selling to people that you are willing to figure it out. I don't know what microservices are. However, I know it's about A, B, C, D, and E, and I am willing to learn more about it. That's it. That is majority of the time all you have to say. You can at least start figuring out some basic concepts based on the job description and what people list out on what their desires are, but you're never going to have enough experience to fit all of those requirements. And even if you do, you're only going to know the basics of some of them, if you're really lucky. Most job descriptions, unfortunately, are looking for unicorns, and recruiters don't understand because they're not tech savvy sometimes. It's just a whole mess where you see that a lot of places are looking for these like unicorns, and people don't have enough experience, and you're going around in that circle where like I need a job to get experience, but this job is telling me that I am not qualified because I don't have enough experience. But how can I get that experience? Yada yada yada. It's a dumb circle. It's for literally any type of job that I feel like anybody's applied for, but knowing that you don't know something and being able to research at least the basics so you can start going in and start crushing these interviews, saying what you don't know and telling people what you comprehend about the basics and saying that you are willing to learn with whatever it takes, that's the selling point. If you are willing to learn, then you're a programmer. Simple as that. If you are willing to learn and experiment and make mistakes and be frustrated, but don't throw your computer, you're a programmer already. And that's what counts. That is definitely what counts. You want to be as investigative as possible. Now, when it comes to the... You don't have to go back to school if you don't want to. I'm still debating on whether or not I want to go back to school for a master's degree in computer science because I don't have a computer science degree. I have an English rhetoric degree. What the fuck is that? What do I do with that except for academia? So I've debated it. I have no clue if I want to go back. I have thought about it, but if you do decide to go back, find a company that'll sponsor that, or at least like pay a percentage of the tuition, because there are places that will help support you financially with getting a master's degree or whatever you need when it comes to certifications or a degree or something. because you're already there, you should use those benefits, milk those benefits. And maybe that's something that people should also look at when it comes to finding positions at companies, where what kind of resources can they give you when it comes to your learning and your growth. So there's that. I don't believe that you need to go back to school to program, but I do think that analysis paralysis kills a lot of people. It kills a lot of their motivation to learn how to code, and we don't want you there. And if you're watching this, whoever decided to send in that question, let's talk. I would love to work with you and figure out what your struggles are and what you've been feeling when it comes to the not knowing enough, as well as how to navigate what you're feeling is sexism in tech, because I've definitely had to deal with that. But the thing is, going kind of into your second part of your concerns, is that I think that just I haven't experienced anything so blatant when it comes to sexism, and so I won't be able to talk about I know exactly what maybe you've seen or what you're going through and things, but I think that being able to find a community of women outside of your job, not necessarily inside, but outside of your job, and making sure that you're able to be heard and seen is the best way to help navigate yourself through any sort of struggles that you're going through when it comes to any sexism in the workplace. Because first off, it shouldn't be tolerable anywhere. But here we are in 2020, and people still think that it's okay to just murder Black people and not get any consequences about it. So that's a whole other story for another day. It's really awful that anybody has to deal with any type of preconceived notion that it's okay to touch anybody, that it's okay to assume anything just based on anybody's gender. I've definitely gotten that where people have assumed that I don't know what I'm talking about or will talk over me. But keep records of when you think somebody has been harassing you, any sort of sexism, because that will help you in the long run figure out what kind of steps that you need to take next when it comes to reporting that to HR, when it comes to reporting that to your manager, when it comes to helping figure out what you're going to do when you're telling your community about it, when you're telling a mentor, and taking those next steps from there. I've definitely kept records of things that have been said to me, things that have been done, and so that's what I can tell you about my experience so far. And don't think that anything that people say to you or not say to you is your fault, because that is also another trap that I can get into sometimes, where I'm thinking, Jesus, did I do something that prompted them to say something fucked up or do something? And I think because I'm a Black woman, it kind of makes it even worse, because I definitely question when I've done something wrong to somebody and they're acting really fucked up in some way. And I think majority of the time where somebody has said something to me or been evil or fucked up in some way, it's because I'm taking up space, and I don't care about what people want me to be when it comes to what they're perceiving as my personality. I'm thinking of a specific example, but I won't name names here. I've definitely been too loud for a person in my office space once, and it's very interesting because we have an open office space, and I've never heard any other complaints on from anybody else when it comes to me and my voice elevated and whatnot. It's not I'm yelling at anybody or anything. That's I'm excited to be there, and I'm excited to do the work and things. And I like my coworkers, to be honest. So like that's really nice and comforting. But being able to take up space is something that's really important to me. But this particular person, um, he has made very interesting email responses to me about different things, has been very just mean-spirited and not a very good team player when it comes to collaborating. And he's definitely said some ugly things about me with other coworkers that I know of. And so can't necessarily prove anything for different reasons, but it's important to like what I'm getting at. And I know that other people that are in the office, they wear earphones, they're noise canceling, so they don't have to hear just like anything. And I totally understand that, my voice included. That's understandable, and they've been able to like work fine doing that. And so my problem with this particular person is that one day when I came to the office, they wrote on my whiteboard, "Stop talking, start working." And that may not be a big deal to some people, but the fact that you have the balls to, first off, accuse me of not working because I'm talking too much, according to you, as well as even like deface like my board in general and think that you can do that is cowardly, and it doesn't solve your issue. If you have an issue, let's talk about it. Let's be adults about that. But instead, you decided to go low and not talk to me about the issue. And you don't think that I am worthy enough to even be like on your level of respect to even talk about the issue, which is the other problem. And so, do I think that it was racially motivated? Yes, I definitely do. Did that person get consequences for those actions? I can't say that they were consequences that I was satisfied with. I know that that person did it, and I can prove that he did it. And so it's just very irritating to have to be in a room with people that don't want to respect themselves and respect others enough to just like solve your problems like adults. And if you are going through anything when it comes to any type of problems in the workplace, I hope that you know that you can talk to me about it. You can talk to hopefully people in your community that is outside of work, and make sure you document that shit, because you never know what kind of evidence that might come up when you like report that to HR and whatnot. I can't say that they'll always be productive about that, to be honest, but as long as you have the evidence for it, you can take some type of action. And if it needs to be legal, then you can do so. I'm also like not a spokesperson for any type of like legal action or anything like that. I just know that from where I'm coming from and from my experience, like that's what I've always been told by my mentors. That's always been what people that I know that are older in tech have told me. And so make sure that you document that shit, and make sure that if you can get it in an email, definitely get that shit in an email, because it's time stamped. You can print it out, you can do whatever. Make sure that you save those for later, because you have physical evidence now if you need to start taking action. And I hope that this doesn't discourage anybody from going into tech at all, especially any women. And some people are assholes, and I just don't understand the need to be. But a lot of that, I think, boils down to fear and jealousy. Fear that people are better than you, and so that comes out in either an angry way, a sad way, or a panicked way. And this is, again, just something that I have observed based on my experience. When it comes to jealousy, some people are very comfortable with being mediocre about what they are able to do. And so when people are seeing that others are doing good, others are doing better work, better quality of work, that green-eyed monster will get you. And some people feel like they can't get away with doing actionable, crazy and absurd things because of what they're feeling, and it's their problem. It's not a you problem. So don't ever think that any of this is your fault. Make sure you document that shit. And if you are trying to get into a job, make sure that people are understanding what you don't know, but what concepts that you do know about that subject, and literally just go for it. There's no reason for you to stop yourself from applying for a job, at least, because you never know what they actually need. In most job descriptions, they're written by recruiters or HR people, devs or whoever is in charge of that stuff. They just give a list out, and then without really knowing or understanding the true nature and depth of what people need when it comes to technology in their workspace or whatever it is, just recruiters are just going to list all of that down, make sure that that's done and easy, and then put it out there and just kind of see what unicorns kind of step in. That happens all the time. So just apply for the job, take a breath, because that's only the first step. There's no reason for you to not at least apply, because you're literally putting in a resume. That's all that you're doing. You're putting in a resume, you're just talking about maybe your projects in a cover letter or something, and going from there. If they don't call you, then they don't call you. Clearly, if they don't call you or email you with wanting to get to know you better, then that is just an opportunity that is waiting somewhere else. That no is a lesson. That no is okay, that wasn't the best path for me anyways. Let's try another thing and go from there. So don't be discouraged when it comes to just at least apply. Just do that one thing and move on to whatever other jobs that you're looking at. And I promise you that at least one of those will stick. At least one of those you'll get a phone call from. If there's a bunch of no's, there's going to be a yes eventually. You got to stick with it. You have to be consistent. So that is all that I have to say about that. I am going to make sure that I put in the comments below where you can see more of my content, because based off of what I have seen and heard today, I have a lot more ideas of content that I can give you guys. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much for everybody who's watched. And I am also going to put out a post next week on what people want me to talk about on a live. So yeah, it's going to be great. I will see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed this. So yeah, see you later.